Arizona Lodges, the High Country, is made possible by the KAET program partners, Friends of Channel 8, who provide additional gifts to support the Arizona collection.
Miles southeast of the Grand Canyon, the ponderosa pines of the North Rim give way to the grassy steppes of northeastern Arizona. Here lies the town of Winslow. 25 years after opening El Tovar, and only 2 years after rival Union Pacific completed Grand Canyon Lodge, the Santa Fe Railway opened one of the finest railroad lodges ever built, La Posada.
La Posada was the last of the great Harvey houses to be built, and it's the largest one to survive.
La Posada is the crown jewel. Not only is it an esteemed building by a noted architect, Mary Coulter, but it's very inspirational and motivating.
There's something very magical about this space. It's so open space-wise that it frees your imagination.
For the city of Winslow, this is the center of the city. Everything happens here at La Posada. For the traveler, it's an oasis. It's really something unexpected to be driving down the highway and you come across this incredible, magnificent Spanish hacienda. And for me, of course, it's my home.
Winslow is a railroad town. In the 1880s, when the railroad was plotting its southern transcontinental route, it needed a place with an abundant year-round water supply to quench the thirst of its massive steam trains. It found such a place at the confluence of the Little Colorado and Clear Creek, and Winslow was born. By the turn of the century, Fred Harvey hotels, known as Harvey houses, had been built all along the Santa Fe main line, from Kansas City to Los Angeles, including a simple brick structure in Winslow. But as the 20th century unfolded, rail passengers began to demand more sophisticated accommodations. Grand hotels such as Charles Whittlesey's El Tovar at the Grand Canyon and his Alvarado in Albuquerque promised a complete southwestern cultural experience. Winslow's dilapidated Harvey house could no longer compete.
The business was growing so fast in the Southwest, and they had Mary Coulter around, and they figured that they could, in fact, make Winslow like Santa Fe. Winslow would be the big city in northern Arizona. It wasn't going to be Flagstaff, it wasn't going to be Sedona, it was going to be Winslow. So they thought they needed a really first-class destination resort hotel here.
In January 1929, Santa Fe announced that Mary Coulter would design and build a new Winslow Harvey house. Much as she had done at Hopi House, Coulter conjured up a story to help her imagine the structure. Her tale is that of a Spanish Don. He arrives here in the early 1800s, builds a cattle ranch and home. Over the years, the ranch is passed to his heirs, who build new wings onto the house until a grand hacienda is born. However, by 1930, the family fortune is gone. They must relinquish their home to the Harvey Company, who promises to maintain the proud estate of La Posada. La Posada opened on May 15th, 1930, and all who entered it were transported into Coulter's dream world of Old Mexico.
It was and is this experience of, like you're entering a house where the owners had just left, and you're wondering when they might come back.
It was also, from an engineering point of view, a very modern building. It's a cast concrete building, which in the late 20s was coming into vogue. Most of the walls are about 20 inches thick, and that's 20 inches of concrete. That's very important when you're built right next to a railroad track, because you can sit and see the trains go by without hearing them. The other thing that's very modern about it is just the layout of the space. It's just broad arches from the ballroom to the library to the lobby to the foyer. So the space just flows.
For Mary Coulter, this was her largest, most elaborate building, her most Hispanic building, and her favorite building.
She did all the interiors. She either designed or hand-selected all the furniture. Her only landscape plan was for La Posada. She designed the china, she designed the maid's costumes. The only Harvey hotel with a distinctive outfit was La Posada. So this really was her baby.
The Santa Fe Railway hailed La Posada as an artistic achievement. It also chided Coulter for going $1.5 million over budget. A telegram they sent to the Harvey Company read, "Congratulations on the new building, La Posada. Hope income exceeds estimates as much as the building cost did."
That telegram indirectly referred to the fairly recent stock market crash, which of course wasn't planned for. So they were especially concerned what the income would be in this new elaborate hotel. Would people, given the economy, come here?
Despite the concerns, many felt La Posada was poised to be the grandest of all the Harvey houses. In the early 1930s, adventuresome travelers did come west by train.
Rail travel was wonderful, but it took, what, 4 or 5 days to get from Chicago to Los Angeles? You can get pretty being confined to a train.
So imagine what it was like arriving here in 1930. You'd have gone for days across the desert, and suddenly this huge mirage, this fabulous hacienda with acres of gardens.
When the trains were in, it was a busy place. It was just really a hurried place because the customers on the train had 30 minutes to walk into the dining room, order their meals, eat their meals, and walk back to the train.
La Posada guests would soon include the rich and famous. Over the years, Albert Einstein, John Wayne, Clark Gable, Bob Hope, Jane Russell, and even Shirley Temple rested here on their way to and from Los Angeles. It became a favorite hideaway of Charles Lindbergh, who designed the Winslow Airport, and Howard Hughes, whose upstart TWA stopped regularly in Winslow. Despite La Posada's comforts, many could not wait to see the sights. In the Southwest, Fred Harvey ran the Indian Detours, allowing the dudes, as tourists were called, to climb aboard a Harvey car and head out to explore the Wild West.
You could go south to the Mogollon Rim, you could go to Grand Canyon, you could go to the Hopi reservations, the Navajo reservation. You could travel northeastern Arizona.
One detour destination took the dudes across 20 miles of roadless high desert to the edge of Meteor Crater. Today, visitors can retrace their steps and gaze down into the nearly mile-wide and 550-foot hole in the earth. The crater was created 50,000 years ago when a giant meteor weighing millions of tons pierced the Earth's atmosphere and slammed into its crust. One of the most popular Harvey detours was a journey into the canyon lands and mesas of the Hopi and Navajo. Some detours traveled as far as Monument Valley and Canyon de Chelly. Next on the detour itinerary, the wild and beautiful Painted Desert and Petrified Forest.
You had to be a pretty seriously devoted individual, pretty adventuresome spirit in order to come out here, because you still in the 1930s had very few paved roads, and it would be a very long and bumpy and usually a very warm trip because they didn't have air conditioning. It would look like an alien landscape, almost like you had come to another planet, because you'd never seen anything quite like this before, and here your eyes are seeing something that looks like a tree that's been knocked down, but at the same time when you reach out and touch it, your hand tells you that it's a rock, so it's something just very unique and special.
Soon it was back aboard the Harvey car for the hot and dusty ride to the cool confines of La Posada.
Think what a relief it must have been, that one spot of genteel tranquility and customer service, that bit of what was familiar more like back home in the sea of the wild, wild west.
As the 1930s drew on, the country slipped into the Great Depression. Fewer travelers were on northern Arizona's roads and rails looking for fun and adventure. At La Posada, The first sign of trouble came when Fred Harvey stopped operating the Indian detours.
People didn't order big meals. They didn't order special things. They seldom would order an extra dessert. And your tips were nickels and dimes if you got a tip.
More of those who did make the journey west did so in their own automobile. Now people could go where they wanted, when they wanted. They didn't have to plan their trips by railroad schedules or around Fred Harvey houses. The days of rail passengers flowing through La Posada to explore the West were gone. But soon, thousands would pass through its halls on their way to a far more serious destination. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the U.S. immediately began mobilizing for war in the Pacific. That meant moving men and machinery to the West Coast. Throughout the war years, troop trains stopped in Winslow and hundreds of servicemen flooded La Posada for a quick meal. Thousands of meals a day were served. The soldiers then marched back to the train and continued their journey westward to the battlefields of the Pacific.
Gee, there were hundreds of troop trains, all hours of the day and night. They were kids. They were just kids, gee. Probably the first time away from home. I didn't have too many coming home. I had more going over than coming home.
Those boys won the war, and those who came back needed jobs. Some came to Winslow. By the early 1950s, the railroad freight business was booming. Winslow was now a bustling town of 6,500, and La Posada was its social center.
Anything worth celebrating came to La Posada.
If you ever had company come and took them out to dinner into La Posada, the Elks Clubs and the Shriners Clubs would come. La Posada would have dances, and of course everybody came. Everybody in town came.
There's a picture somewhere around here. They can find my husband in it. And I know he didn't go to a dance by himself, but I don't know where I am in the picture.
In the 1950s, it was still serving the community. It was still an elegant place. It just wasn't profitable. By then, Route 66 was completed, and the people who had saved their money during World War II for the first time in their lives could buy a brand new car. And so what would you do when you bought a brand new car? You'd travel Route 66 to see the nation. Gasoline stations, neon lights, swimming pools.
They built all these Route 66 motor courts in the 40s and 50s. So to stay at La Posada was $5 to $12, and to stay at one of the motor courts was $1.
La Posada tried to stay open, but there was too many restaurants, motels, hotels built along the road, so they finally shut her down.
I was just sick. I really was just sick.
Oh, I was horrified. I mean, it was a depressing feeling. There were too many memories here.
It was mourned in this community like the death of a family member. We lost something, and we weren't able to say exactly what it was for a while.
In 1957, they closed the building, and in 1959, they auctioned off all the furniture. Mary Coulter was living in retirement in Santa Fe. They had already torn down her El Navajo hotel in Gallup. They asked her how she felt about closing La Posada, and she said, "Now I know there's such a thing as living too long." Coulter died believing that her work would all be wiped out.
For the Santa Fe, La Posada was a white elephant. The railroad tried to sell it, but no one was interested.
So what they decided to do, since they couldn't sell La Posada, is they would convert it into their Arizona headquarters. So for 40 years, from 1960 until 1997, this building was Arizona headquarters for the Santa Fe Railway.
And for them, if you're going to have an office space, you want to have drop ceilings, fluorescent lights, nice right angles on your walls. And so in they came, and up went the drop ceilings. Most of the arches were filled in. They even in a number of places filled over the flagstone floor, a nice uneven hand set flagstone floor, and they put down, you know, linoleum tile or, you know, 9x9 tiles over that to get a nice straight even floor.
It became, to most people, just a dusty old building.
Winslow would soon face another challenge. In 1979, the last stretch of Interstate 40 was completed, replacing Route 66. Travelers could now drive through northern Arizona without ever visiting its towns.
When Interstate 40 went around us and businesses began to migrate out, it got to the point that you could eat your lunch in the middle of the street and not worry about getting run over. And so, effectively, the downtown died.
In the meantime, there were buildings being raised throughout the country that were no longer used by railroads. And this happened in Albuquerque, it happened in Gallup. They destroyed them.
Marie Lamar and her friend Janice Griffith joined forces to fight for La Posada.
If there were more than 3 people who wanted to listen to us, we stood and talked to them about the value of La Posada. We gave tours through La Posada, dusty as the east side was, and people were very polite to us, but so many of them doubted our sanity.
Janice and Marie also organized a group of volunteers who cared for La Posada's withering grounds. The group was dubbed the Gardening Angels, but what was really needed was money. Largely due to their efforts in 1993, the city was awarded federal funds to purchase and begin restoring the building. Now, all they had to do was come up with matching funds and raise the estimated $11.5 million to complete the restoration.
And we put the city government in cardiac arrest. I can guarantee you, what do we do with this money? It will bankrupt us. And of course, in the meantime, enter Alan Affeldt, a total stranger from California.
Affeldt, a 38-year-old graduate student, noticed La Posada on a National Trust for Historic Preservation list of endangered buildings. He began advising Janice, Marie, and the city as to how to save the building. Eventually, he decided to take on the task himself.
So I abandoned my university work and started negotiating with the railway. And that, of course, led to a 3-year ordeal. We thought it'd be a very simple real estate transaction. They want to get rid of the building, I want to buy it, write the check. 3 years it took to do that deal.
In 1997, Affeldt and his wife, artist Tina Millone, became the owners of La Posada. They were also now responsible for restoring the 73,000 square foot hacienda.
So we came in on April 1st in a blinding snowstorm, and the trains that first night, I felt they were going completely through my head. Now I don't hear them at all.
Alan, Tina, Tina's brother Keith, and Alan's ball partner, artist Dan Lutzig, began tearing out the 60s era walls, floors, and equipment.
One of the very most satisfying things is demolition. Because unlike negotiation, which is 3 years, demolition, you take a sledgehammer and you knock out an arch, and 2 hours later, wow, look at that, there's an arch.
And the building itself was so solid that you would be hard-pressed to do damage to any part of it. Matter of fact, during the initial demolition, if you ever made the mistake of swinging a sledgehammer into the real building, you would feel that for about the next 2 weeks in your arms. Along the way, people would wander into the hotel and, finally walk up to me and ask, is this open and can we check in? I would walk over to another room, grab a clipboard, take their name down, and maybe grab a credit card, and then go up, take them up to a room.
The whole thing was very odd, but people really got a kick out of it because they knew this was not a corporate deal. There was something very authentic going on here. This was really a labor of love.
Over the years, the spirit of La Posada has been restored. The ballroom, which had become a soulless conference room, is again a warm, relaxing gathering space. The original lobby had been stripped of all its character. Although no longer the lobby, it again welcomes weary travelers to La Posada. And the original Fred Harvey lunchroom, across whose counters Ruby McHood served many a train traveler, which had become the nerve center for all Santa Fe trains in Arizona, has been transformed into one of the finest gourmet restaurants in northern Arizona.
Rich, you just get the middle.
An ongoing effort to find and return original furnishings combined with commissioned reproductions and appropriate antiques have restored La Posada's interior to Coulter's eclectic and warm tone.
1, 2, 3.
New works by artisans such as Vern Lucero, one of the Southwest's premier tinsmiths, infuse the building with the cultural history and personal passion of this region. And the contemporary works of Dan Lutzik and Tina Millon reveal the vitality of today's La Posada. For Tina, La Posada is also her studio.
As a place to show my work, it's spectacular because I have people coming from all over the world here. And so it works as a wonderful space for my home and gallery.
The restoration continues. Room by room, La Posada's past is being revealed and its future assured. And for the people of Winslow, La Posada has been restored to its place of prominence in the community.
Alan Affeldt opened the doors and gave Winslow back a part of La Posada.
Once again, it's a place for Winslow to go to experience, to use for meetings, for special events, to go to the restaurant, to go to just to enjoy.
Over and over and over again. It was the right people at the right time, and maybe it was just a coincidence, and maybe it was just hard work, and maybe it was a lot of luck, but I think there was a confluence of all of that. And as Marie Lamar likes to say, the spirit of Mary Coulter, there's something about this building that enabled it to be saved. But a building like this is more than just a business. This is an essential part of northern Arizona and of the history of the Southwest. And now La Posada is a very well-known, beloved building. And people come here from everywhere. We have Route 66 fans, we have rail fans, there are Mary Coulter fans who come here. They go to the Grand Canyon, they discover her work, and they go on a pilgrimage to see all of her buildings. There are people who are going up to Hopi and Navajo lands who come here. And this is maybe what it never was before. This really is the destination resort hotel for northeastern Arizona.
All aboard!
For it to be in Winslow really is saving the downtown. This is the catalyst for every building in downtown being purchased and restored in the last few years. And that is, in fact, what's happening.
Every Friday night, I get in my car and I make what I call the loop from the east end of Winslow to the west end and back, because that's what we used to do when Winslow was in its heyday in the 40s and 50s. And now, once again, building by building, those lights are returning, and it's very heartwarming to me, and it's heartwarming to the community. The building is a part of Winslow that I wish to see go on 100 years from now. That's what La Posada is to Winslow. It's its heart and soul.
Three historic Arizona lodges, architectural landmarks that share a railroad history, and a tradition of offering travelers comfort, elegance, and a unique window onto Arizona's high country.